You don't lose discipline at night. You lose it the moment you wake up. And the strange part is, you don't even notice it happening, because before you check your phone, before you even think clearly, something in your morning has already decided how your entire day will go. And it's not laziness. It's self-sabotage. Most people think discipline is the problem. They believe if they were more motivated, more focused, more consistent, everything would change. But that's not where the real failure happens. The truth is, your discipline is already being weakened long before you try to be productive. In this video, you'll understand a simple but uncomfortable idea. Your mornings are not neutral. They are either building control or quietly destroying it. And once you see what's really happening in those first moments of the day, you won't be able to ignore it again. You think your morning starts when you wake up, but it actually starts before you make your first decision. The first leak is not action, it's attention. The moment you reach for your phone, you are no longer in control of your morning. You've already handed your focus to something else. And here's the part most people miss. It doesn't feel like a decision. It feels automatic, normal, harmless. But psychologically, something important just happened. You stopped directing your mind and started reacting to it. That's the first form of self-sabotage. Not laziness, not procrastination, but loss of control through unconscious behavior. And once that happens, everything after becomes harder. Because your brain doesn't start the day neutral, it starts the day conditioned by the first input it receives. If the first input is distraction, the rest of the day follows that pattern. Not because you're weak, but because your system has already been set. And that is the first leak. Most people assume their morning choices are logical. They are not. They are emotional reactions disguised as habits. After the first moment of distraction, your brain immediately looks for comfort. Not productivity, not discipline. Comfort. Because in that state, right after waking up, you are not mentally strong yet. You are still transitioning from rest to awareness. And your brain knows this. So it offers you something easy. A quick escape, a familiar distraction, something that requires zero resistance. This is what most people don't see. Your morning is not a test of discipline. It is a test of impulse control under low awareness. And comfort always wins when awareness is low. That's why the phone feels harmless. That's why you say, just for a minute. And that's why you lose 20, 30, sometimes 60 minutes without realizing it. But behind that is a deeper mechanism. Your brain is not trying to ruin your day. It is trying to reduce discomfort as fast as possible, even if that comfort destroys your momentum later. So every time you choose ease over friction in the morning, you are not relaxing. You are reinforcing a pattern. A pattern that says, avoid effort first. And once that pattern is set early in the day, everything that requires discipline becomes heavier than it should feel. Not because the task changed, but because your mind already learned the direction it's allowed to go. Most people think their morning actions are just moments, but they are not. They are signals. Signals to your brain about who you are becoming today. When you wake up and immediately give in to distraction, you are not just losing time. You are making a statement without words. A statement that says, I am someone who reacts, not someone who directs. And your brain listens. Because identity is not built by big decisions. It is built by repeated micro-decisions in low-awareness states. That's why mornings are so dangerous. You are not fully awake yet, but your behavior is already shaping your identity for the next several hours. If your first actions are scattered, your mind adopts a scattered identity. If your first actions are controlled, your mind adopts a controlled identity. And here is the part most people never realize. You don't become disciplined later in the day. You either build discipline in the morning, or you spend the rest of the day trying to recover it. That's why some days feel heavy from the start. It's not external pressure. It's internal identity misalignment. You started the day as someone unfocused, so every focused task now feels like resistance against your own pattern. And the longer you stay in that pattern, the more normal it becomes. Until eventually, you don't question it anymore. You just accept it as how your mornings are. But it was never fixed. It was repeated. Most people assume self-sabotage feels bad. It doesn't. If it felt bad immediately, you would stop. But that's not how it works. Self-sabotage is powered by a hidden reward loop, and in the morning, that reward is strongest. When you avoid effort, when you stay in bed a little longer, when you scroll instead of starting your day, something subtle happens in your brain. A small release of relief, not pleasure exactly. Relief. And your brain interprets relief as success. Because from its perspective, we avoided discomfort. We are safe. And here's the loop. Avoid discomfort. Feel relief. Repeat behavior. And the dangerous part is this. The reward is immediate, but the cost is delayed. So your brain keeps choosing what feels good now, over what builds control later. This is why you don't notice the damage in real time. In the moment, nothing feels wrong. But psychologically, you are training a system. A system that learns. Pressure should be avoided, not faced. And once that system is reinforced enough times, discipline doesn't feel hard. It feels unnatural, because now effort is no longer your default. Escape is. And that is the loop most people never break, because they mistake comfort for harmless behavior, when in reality, it is training your identity every single morning. There is a moment in every morning that most people never recognize. It doesn't feel dramatic, nothing obvious happens. But internally, something important locks in. It's the point where your day's direction becomes harder to change. Not impossible, just expensive. And for most people, that moment happens early. After the first distractions, after the first avoidance, after the first comfort loop. Because once your brain has entered that pattern, it starts building momentum in that direction. And momentum is dangerous. It doesn't care about intention. It only continues what has already started. That's why you can still try to be productive later in the day, but feel like you are pushing against something heavier than usual. You are not starting fresh. You are fighting the direction your morning already set. And here is the uncomfortable truth. Most people don't fail their day at 3 p.m. They lose control of it in the first 30 to 60 minutes after waking up. After that, the day is not decided, but it is heavily biased. Every task feels slightly harder. Every distraction feels slightly more attractive. Every moment of effort feels slightly more expensive. Not because reality changed, but because your internal state did. And once that state is set, you are no longer choosing freely. You are negotiating with momentum. That is the point of no return most people never notice. Not a single decision, but a chain reaction that quietly decides everything that follows. Most people believe they can fix a bad morning. They think, I'll just reset later. I'll get back on track in the afternoon. I just need to try harder. But that belief is the illusion. Because you are not operating from a reset state. You are operating from a carryover state. Your brain does not erase earlier patterns just because you decided to change later. It continues from what was already built. So when you try to force discipline in the afternoon, you are not starting fresh. You are trying to override momentum. And momentum always has an advantage. This is why motivation feels weaker later in the day. Not because you lost energy, but because your mind has already learned a direction. A direction of avoidance. A direction of distraction. A direction of ease. So every attempt to lock in later feels like resistance against your own internal programming. And the harder you push, the more friction you feel. That's when people start thinking something is wrong with them. But nothing is wrong. You are simply trying to override a system that was already set in motion. And here is the real insight. You cannot compensate for a sabotaged morning with increased effort later. You can only reduce damage, or prevent it early. Because discipline is not a sudden event, it is a state that is protected from the beginning of the day. Without that protection, you are not building control. You are recovering from loss. And recovery always feels harder than prevention. So if you look at everything clearly now, it was never about discipline in the way most people think. It was never about forcing yourself harder, or trying again with more motivation, or waiting for the right mindset. The real issue is simpler and harder to accept. Your mornings are either building control or building sabotage. And most people don't realize they are choosing sabotage before they are even fully awake. Not in one big decision, but in small, automatic moments that feel harmless. That's why change feels difficult. Not because you are weak, but because you are trying to fix the day after it has already been shaped. And once you see that clearly, something shifts. You stop thinking about discipline as something you turn on later. You start seeing it as something you either protect early or lose quietly. Because control is not built in the middle of the day. It is defined in the beginning. And the uncomfortable truth is this. Most people don't need a new life strategy. They need a different morning pattern. Not more effort. Not more motivation. Just fewer moments of self-sabotage at the start. Because if you fix the first hour, you don't need to fight the rest of the day. Most people will hear this and still repeat the same morning tomorrow. But the moment you actually understand it, you stop negotiating with yourself. You start observing what breaks you before it breaks your day. And that is where control begins. If this changed how you see your mornings, subscribe. Because this channel is not about motivation. It's about control.